Hi, it's Tuesday the 16th of September. This is Ecotastic episode 5. My name is Robin Yellow and with me as always is Mr. Kit Knowles.
Good evening, everyone. Lovely to be here. What have we got on this afternoon? Evening.
This afternoon, well, what I say is it's the afternoon somewhere on Earth at any point in time.
Oh, nice. I like that. So by that logic, it could also be morning.
That is true, but I was trying to support you there, but I won't do it again.
Okay, nice. Well, should we move on then?
Yeah, so after your absence last week and your trip to IKEA, you've decided to turn up, and so hopefully it'll be a better show.
But my show home open days went fabulously, all thanks to the IKEA trip. Well, no thanks to the IKEA trip, but it went fabulously.
Now, actually, before we start with the news, maybe you could tell us a little bit about this Superhomes show home day that you did.
Gladly, yeah. So the idea behind Superhomes really simple. It's if you can reduce your carbon footprint by 60% or more in your own home, which we've achieved 80%, then we open our homes to the public and show them how to do the same for their own. And it's all about retrofit. So it's those with existing properties. This isn't really set up for the new build side of things. But if you have a house and you'd like it to be more efficient, then the Superhomes network is national. I think it has over 150 properties on it, and it's covered by a huge number of sort of intellectuals and people making waves in the industry. So you can see just about every technology imaginable, huge numbers of world firsts, etc., across this network, and it opens usually a couple of times, 2-3 times a year. And it's a fantastic opportunity to kind of nosy into people's lives and see how they are doing things, both from the hardcore technology, what's in the walls, what's making things tick, but also just, furnishings and life, how they're sort of planning things. It's a really sort of in-depth look, and it's just so much intrigue to get across. So please get on the Superhomes network and have a look for what's opening near you, I guess.
What's the URL for that?
That is superhomes.co.uk, I believe. Sorry, .org.uk.
.org.uk. And actually, in the pre-show, we were looking at a video that you'd made where you showed off some of the features of your house. Unfortunately, due to the fact that the YouTube plugin to Hangouts on Air seemed to crash my crummy computer, we're not going to be able to show that today. But maybe when we get a TriCaster, we'll be able to play that out in a future Ecotastic.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so let's get to the news.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so this first story is from EarthSky, a story from Deanna Connors about a new report detecting substantial rise in greenhouse gases. A new report from the World Meteorological Organization, released on September the 9th, 2014, has detected a substantial rise in the level of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. From 2012 to 2013, carbon dioxide concentrations increased by 2.9 parts per million, and now total 396 parts per million. Now, the Global Atmosphere Watch Program of the WMO monitors long-lived greenhouse gases in the atmosphere through a network of hundreds of ground-based monitoring stations and instruments on board ships and aircraft. Now, Kit, what effect does carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere have on climate?
There's lots of effects that it does have. I think the main one that most people focus on is the greenhouse gas effect, in that by being present in higher concentrations in our atmosphere, it prevents less energy from leaving our planet back into space. So it allows heat in but not out, because it blocks a particular part of the infrared spectrum. So they come in at high energy and they leave at lower energies, and they can no longer get back out, so they get kept within the atmosphere, warming things up, which changes quite a lot from a biodiversity perspective through the change in the actual sort of global temperatures. But there's all sorts of other effects that it has in the acidification of waters and sort of flows of energy and carbon within the actual sort of biodome that we live within. So
Now, one of the things that I've heard you talking about is the desalination of the oceans. I might have got that the wrong way around. Can you explain a little bit more about what desalination of the oceans means?
So desalination is something we talk about a lot when we're talking about technologies for survival, particularly in countries which have lack of water. But I think the big effect from a global perspective in terms of climate change is it's the concentrations of salinity, and how the densities changing. So what salinity enables you to do is, for instance, drive heat streams similar to the Gulf Stream, that is driven by salinity, i.e. The highest saline concentrations are denser, so they drop down to the bottom of the sea, and the flows of energy from one continent to another are carried in these sort of Gulf Streams. And those are driven by salinity gradients. So if the salinity changes because of other cycles acting on it, which are driven by other climatic events such as concentrations of CO2, then you're upset that entire balance.
And the Atlantic Conveyor, which is a stream of water running from the Gulf of Mexico to northern Europe, becomes dramatically affected by the desalination caused by the melting of the ice in
Icebergs.
Yeah,
that's it. That's spot on.
There you go. I knew I'd get something right eventually if I tried for long enough. Let's move on. An article in The Guardian from Guy Standing entitled "Why Fracking Should Be for the Many" talks about the fracking, the general election, which we're having a general election in the UK next year, and how we should be working hard to make sure that fracking isn't a footnote in that election. Guy talks in his article about the claims made by its advocates that it has major implications for the economy, as much as the discovery of North Sea oil and, as he states, the mishandling of the North Sea oil off the coast of Scotland, and talks about the opportunities for energy independence and how that NIMBYism could be a problem with this. Now, he's making the point, I think, that the economics of fracking are very good, but there are some severe climate implications, aren't there?
Yeah, that's the reason I picked this up. I like balanced arguments. I like when people are actually picking up both sides of the argument. It was actually a statistic that I stumbled across the other day. Really gave me another sort of stark look at the safety implications of fracking, from both the physical safety of it in terms of water pollution, but also in terms of climatic change. One of the things that I'd not actually considered before is that there's actually a leakage rate applied to every fracking action. So fracking is obviously natural gas, and that's predominantly made up of sort of methanes, butanes, up to pentanes. And these sort of light hydrocarbons are very, very difficult to contain. And they actually found that between 2 and 5% of all of the natural gas that they release into the sort of the gas pipelines for our usage is actually leaked out during that process. And it's more so in gas fracking than any other form of gas extraction. And this is a really key point, because methane released into the atmosphere, we talked earlier about carbon dioxide acting as a greenhouse gas. Carbon dioxide is actually only 1/40th of the effect of methane. So methane is 40 times better at reflecting heat, and therefore worse, or worsening the climatic issue that we have in terms of greenhouse gas effect. So one of the biggest safety things that I didn't realize is that this leak, not only does it end up with sort of a localized issue in terms of release of methane, but also that it's going to have much more severe effects on the environment just through the leakage of methane.
So that is methane, butane, pentane seeping up because of leakages in the gas extraction process into the atmosphere and amplifying the effect, the greenhouse effect, alongside carbon dioxide. And what were you saying there? It's hundreds of times worse than carbon dioxide.
It's 40 times better at reflecting the low energy infrared, i.e., if you released a litre of carbon dioxide or a litre of methane, the methane would be 40 times worse for the global warming side of things.
Hence all the stuff about cows, which maybe we'll get into another day.
Yeah, but sorry, Ron, just one last one is that really interestingly, the entire argument of the US is that the reason fracking is good is because they're seeing a drop in their carbon emissions. And the carbon emissions is all planned around the kind of global warming argument. But the reality is that this is sort of articles and news and research coming out that's attacking that entire sort of Obama-led design, which is that actually you are directly having a worse effect because your CO2e, which is the equivalent, that's the overall effect that it's having, is worse with fracking, not better than coal. That's the big hitter. It's actually releasing more greenhouse gas or having more greenhouse gas effect than coal, which is what they're swapping away from in the first place.
Oh, so very interesting. And as usual, it's those two opposing forces of ecology and commerce and economics fighting against each other. Let's move on now to a BBC article written by Matt McGrath talking about fossil fuel subsidies and the reckless use of public funds. Every year, apparently, the world is spending $500 billion on fossil fuel subsidies, according to a new report from the Overseas Development Institute, which says that rich countries are spending 7 times more supporting coal, oil, and gas than they are helping poorer nations fight climate change. Some countries, including Egypt, Morocco, and Pakistan, have subsidies bigger than the national fiscal debt. Now, Kit, I know this is a matter close to your heart. What's so wrong about this?
I mean, the strongest argument for adopting renewables is the fact that they're very expensive. So whenever you talk to anybody about renewables, they talk about the subsidies and they talk about cost per kilowatt hour for the energy. And the reason that this is so important as a matter is that when you actually break it all down, you've got an industry that's been around over 120 years. That's built on trillions and trillions of pounds worth of infrastructure worldwide. They've got all the pipelines, all the rigs, all the refineries. These have been around for a long time. They've had huge investment. And the really upsetting thing is that on top of all of that, year on year, you would have thought after 120 years it would be a pretty self-supporting business. But there's two strong arguments around national security and energy security that means that governments worldwide still feel it's an obligation to give them huge tax breaks to enable them to guarantee this energy supply. Now, the big risk here is that everybody is ignoring renewables on their extreme costs, but on the flip side, in every possible way, they're actually cheaper than the fossil fuels, and it's never a fair fight. I mean, how do we expect to get renewables onto the market with no existing infrastructure for them to slot into? And everything needs to be new. We need to lay the concrete foundations and put up the towers for the wind turbines, etc. There's just nothing there. So it's all starting from scratch, and then we're having the subsidies counted against us, but the tax breaks aren't counted against from the fossil fuel side of things. It just is completely unfair.
It is, and hopefully people like you and me are going to change all that with the power of news. Let's move on to a Tree Hugger article from Christine Lepisto entitled Stealth Wind Turbines Ready for Deployment. Now, the title of this article just caught me, Stealth Wind Turbines. Tree Hugger has tracked the introduction of this stealth wind power, welcoming the swords into plowshares technology, heralded for its 99% reduction in radar signature compared to standard wind turbines. Vestas installed one of these wind turbines in 2011, and they're moving forward with more this year, resulting in EDF's 96 megawatts of capacity, making it the biggest wind farm in France, a country well known for low carbon and renewable technology. What is the point, Kit, of a stealth wind farm?
I mean, I wouldn't have thought anybody care whether they know where your wind turbine is or not, but then I guess the only case in which you would is in during a war, the bombers would know where to target for energy, I guess. Is it only, I mean, it seems so far-fetched that I can't claim that as any kind of a grand leap forward in the industry.
Well, I'm not sure what the insight is, but they do say that it is cheaper for them to build these stealth windmills than it is to retrofit their radar systems to tell airplanes and wind farms apart. There you go. Stuff and nonsense. No idea what the point of that article was, but it just caught my eye. Article here from the International Business Times from Nigel Wilson, published on September the 11th, talking about Poland and Germany reported a supply drop as Russian gas war heats up. Poland has said that its gas supplies from Russia were down 20% on Wednesday, while a German gas operator reported its supplies of Russian gas were lower than usual, raising fears that once again, as we go into the winter in Europe, Russia could withhold gas deliveries to Europe. Now, we get this every year, Kit, don't we? What's the solution?
Oh, solution. I was just about to say, well, this is just an absolute another classic Putinism. It's scaremongering tactics. It's the kind of power that they wield that enables them to get away with what they get away with without the the international response that you'd expect, which is only fair. I mean, in every possible way, they break international law regularly with the Ukraine conflict, but they're not getting the response that they should have via international law. We finally get to the point where we put some kind of economic sanctions on them, and of course the first thing they're going to do is they're going to hold back a bit of gas, because the oligarchs running the whole show don't give a damn about a few pounds missing here or there, but they sure as hell would like to get our economic sanctions lifted. So there is no better way, I believe, than this is the entire energy security debate. So the clear long-term solution is absolutely to get to the point where we as nations within Europe and the rest of the world can become more self-sufficient from an energy perspective, and there is no stronger argument for self-sufficiency than to run down the route of renewables.
And of course, we achieve that self-sufficiency by reducing the amount of energy that we consume, by having greener homes, and increasing the amount of renewable energy that we buy. And one of the ways that we can do that, of course, is by switching our energy suppliers to a green supplier, and that will pump more money into the renewables industry and create more demand for more companies to provide more green and renewable products. Now, I have an all-nuclear power in my house, which is super low carbon, but Kit, I know you actually use a different energy company for your electricity, don't you?
Well, it's interesting because we had this argument or discussion, should I say, some time back with regards to nuclear being a low carbon source. And what was really fantastically interesting is I found an article, I wonder if we could dig it out, but it actually broke down all of the various sort of carbon equivalents associated with all the different mainstream energy provisions or fuel bases. And it was really shocking, actually how high the carbon equivalents were coming out of nuclear. It was fantastically high because of the fact that it takes into consideration the design and the construction and all the right way through to decommissioning, which of course the nuclear side of things is just solid concrete everywhere, which is one of the most carbon intensive forms of construction material. So it was quite shocking actually to see how nuclear, which is always dubbed as super low carbon, is nowhere near as so as you'd expect. So that's one side of it. But in terms of switching, I think that the idea of switching can be valuable, although it is something that's very convenient. So I think that you just got to be careful not to be running down the route of switching and thinking that, wow, now we've got 100% renewable electricity delivered to our door. It doesn't matter how much electricity we use. I mean, of course, that's got a cost implication also, but it's that rebound effect, which is quite common with all steps taken down the sustainability route. So I would say Good Energy is my favourite choice on the basis that they use exclusively renewables, and they're the only one that does use 100% renewables. And also the National Trust has teamed up with them, so they've actually got a deal on that came through to my inbox today, which basically says that anyone who joins or switches to Ecotricity, if you go via the National Trust website, they'll give £40 for every switch to the National Trust to install more renewable capacity across the National Trust sites. So that's quite a nice direct consequence of a switch, not to mention the fact that they're 100%, as I said, renewable.
Well, I have an electric car, as you know, and one of the things that Ecotricity has done in the UK is put 100 amp DC chargers on our motorway network, which means that if I want to go more than 30, 40 miles from home, I depend on Ecotricity. And what do they charge for this service? Nothing. It's free.
Yeah, that's excellent. So Ecotricity is, so that was Good Energy, Ecotricity. There's a couple of others, but I think those two are by far the best. I think Ecotricity has some really good community projects like the electric highways. It also has some biogas, which is the first of its kind for any energy company, where they're trying to focus on deriving gas from basically landfill. But I'd say on the electricity as it currently stands, it's only around about 53% renewables in comparison to the Good Energy 100%. So there's, as always, pros and cons.
Great.
Worth looking at the price.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that. I wanted to, in the pre-show, we were talking about including some video of your house. We're going to find a way to do that. That's going to require probably me buying a faster computer. But to wrap up this week's show, I want to show you a picture, and I want you to tell me, Kit, what you think it is. You see that?
Yes. Okay, so...
Now, you won't be able to hear this on the podcast. We have a podcast RSS feed, which you can see on our YouTube channel. There's a tiny button there. But what do you think that picture is, Kit? Any idea?
So, for those on the podcast, it looks like a circle with another circle inside of it to one side, so sort of concentric circles. I know, having seen this already earlier today, so I guess it's cheating, that it's to do with the Mars moon coming in front of our sun.
That's correct. The Curiosity rover on the surface of Mars took a picture of one of Mars's moons, Phobos, in front of the sun on August the 8th. Absolutely fantastic photo. Just amazing to see that. Got absolutely nothing to do with green or sustainable whatsoever, but I just wanted to pop it up on the screen because I think it's a fantastic thing to look at. That's all we've got. Kit, any closing comments, words of wisdom from you before we close out this week's episode?
Well, I look forward to next week's when we can get a bit of video on the go, so I'll be able to show you the viewers around the property a little bit. We have over 100 environmental and sustainable sort of technologies installed and employed, so there's tons to kind of go at. And if anybody in the meantime has any specifics, get them onto our subreddit. Or ping them through, and we should be able to focus on them. You should actually know more about that, Robin.
Yeah, the subreddit is ecotastic.reddit.com, and you're not around next week, Kit, because I think you're out doing something green in Eastern Europe.
Yes, I'm in Estonia, and I'm looking at improving the window product range that we can bring to the UK.
Fantastic, and you'll be able to tell us some of that when you get back. I may or may not do just a quick news show like I did last week, next week, but we'll see. Anyway, that's it for today. That's it, and Ecotastic episode 5 is in the can.